All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of NFC North, the Freezin 4 podcast, episode 31. We are doing some week 3 review, week 4 preview, the Vikings V, Lions collapse, Packers D, and field struggles in a W, along with some Minnesota sailing to London. Lots to get to. We are joined this time. Grubb is out. Obviously, he actually lives down in Florida, so a lot going on down there. So he's taking the week off. And we are joined. We'll go ahead and start with my presumed pick for the Kings of the North this year, the Vikings. So, Craig, welcome to the show. You are a writer for the Daily Norseman. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us. And we are also joined for the first time by Rev Trev from Kempner Sports. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Pumped to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys. Obviously, we don't have our Lions representation tonight, but there's a lot to get to between the three of our teams. And once again, I am NFL outdated, always repping the Bears. I'm a little bit more timid, I guess, now with what's going on, having a chance to go live and see my guy Justin Fields in person. So a lot to get to tonight. We'll just kind of, go ahead and start, with the Vikings. That was a huge win versus the Lions. And it's interesting because beginning of the year, who would have thought that Vikings-Lions would have been a huge divisional matchup? But really, they stormed back for the 2024 win in Minneapolis. So what were some of your takeaways from that game, Craig?
Yeah, it was impressive to see them come back after that really slow start. They were down 14-0 pretty early in the game. Brought all the way back to 14-14 for halftime, but then immediately lost. Went down 10 points in the second half. I mean, the entire fan base was giving up on them midway through that fourth quarter, down by 10, and it was looking ugly. And really, if it wasn't for Dan Campbell's kind of incompetent coaching and incompetent time management at the end, they probably would have lost the game. So huge shout out to Dan Campbell for the victory. We appreciate it. And, the Lions did what they usually do. They choked it. But the Vikings were actually able to take advantage of their mistakes. And it was good to see.
Well, yeah. I mean, you talk about, this being a lot on Dan Campbell. I mean, is this kind of an indictment of where the Vikings are, or is it just kind of early on in the season trying to figure out what's going on?
Yeah. I think it's really them trying to figure out what to do when Justin Jefferson can't win them the game. You can't lead the offense. Dalvin Cook went out injured. Justin Jefferson was getting double teamed, and they really didn't know what to do for a while there. It took them a while to adjust. They started going back to Thielen. It seems like they forgot about him this year. They went to him quite a bit. They really struggle when that first option isn't available, and I think Kirk takes a little while to adjust when that first option is available. He's still looking Justin Jefferson's way too much. And he finally started to spread the ball around, and Osborne obviously stepped up with a huge game-winning drive at the end for them as well. So I think it's them figuring out what to do when option one isn't there, and it took them a while to figure it out, but they did.
Well, yeah, and this is 2 weeks in a row, really. When you look at it, are you at all worried kind of going forward for Justin Jefferson at all?
No, the defense of the last 2 weeks. I mean, they watched Green Bay. Just allow Justin Jefferson to run free the first game. And so, the Eagles and the Lions did a good job of saying, we're not going to let the number one beat us. Hopefully Kevin O'Connell and the coaching crew look at that and adjust going forward. And I think they will. They obviously were able to do it in the second half there against the Lions. They just need to come in with a better game plan and a better plan B. If he isn't open, and Cook goes out injured, I think that was kind of plan B. So then they kind of panicked there for a little bit. So hopefully they come in with a better game plan.
When you're looking at this game, Trevor, as looking at both divisional opponents, I mean, is there anything now going forward that worries you about the Lions or the Vikings?
Well, I think I've been respecting both those teams from the beginning of the season. I did say last time I was on with you that I actually thought the Lions were a lot better than people thought. So I am very shocked that the Vikings came back and won. It looked like the Lions were in control. But the Vikings found a way to win, and that just shows that they are the better team. Now, we all thought that, but they have to prove it, and it was impressive. Like, it was a very impressive win. Speaking of Thielen, I'm a huge Thielen fan. I love Thielen. He's a touchdown machine, in my opinion, and I think he gets overlooked by Jefferson. So that touchdown where Thielen was wide open, they double or triple teamed Jefferson and left Thielen alone. It's like, this is where the Lions, it's disappointing to see them to do that, but it's great. If you're a Vikings fan, it's like, well, hey, you guys got to learn this way. These are hard lessons to learn. So impressive win.
It really is pick your poison, though, in that red zone. They're so worried about Jefferson because of what he did week one that, they probably overreacted and double and tripled him, maybe even more than they should have. But it's great news for Thielen, because if he can step up and if they look his way more, then it really opens things back up for Jefferson. And then you have that dynamic offense that everybody expected for the Vikings.
Yeah. And on the other side of the ball, are you at all worried about the defense for the Vikings?
No, they're adjusting to a 3-4 scheme. There's a lot of new guys in there, and so I think it's just going to take some time to adjust. They look good at times, and they've given up a lot of yards, but they haven't given up a lot of points. Or is not as many as I think they're 30th in yards in the NFL, and they're 6th in points allowed. So it's kind of been a kind of a bend don't break defense, but I think they're starting to kind of come into it. They're starting to adjust to that scheme. The pass rush isn't as good as I think what we hoped for at this point in time. Danielle Hunter, he's doing well, but he's not playing to that defensive player of the year kind of level that the fans expect him to. And so we're hoping that kind of comes around. That's concerned me a little bit, that they're not getting as much pressure. But overall, I think the defense they're okay right now. And hopefully they learn as the season goes on.
Well, speaking of, another, game where there weren't a lot of points, and you talk about defense, Trevor, what were some of your takeaways from that win over the Bucs?
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. It was ugly. It was hard to watch, just because it was such a defensive battle. When we scored 14 points, I'm like, wow, we're rolling over a great defense. This is actually surprising to me. And then all of a sudden they made some adjustments, and it was like, oh my goodness, we didn't even score a point in the second half. Now, shockingly, we win the game. Like, any team that doesn't score a point in the second half probably should lose. But it just really speaks to both defenses. They are actually legitimate top-end defenses, and nobody's talking about the Packers anymore as a defense, because apparently we're terrible because we lost to the Vikings week one. Well, we were worse in week one last year against the Saints, and we won the division. And not only did we win the division, we got that extra bye week and home playoff game. So, I think we've already been counted out by everyone, and then we win games like this, and everyone's like, whoa, what's up, right? So I was impressed that we found a way to win. And I think that goes back to the Vikings game, is like all these fans, and I'm in, Facebook groups and watching on Twitter and all that stuff. They rip apart our teams. Like, I don't know what it is about every fan base, but it's like, all I care about is that we got the W. That's all I care about. And if we find ways to win, that's what successful teams do. That's what teams that make not only the playoffs, but win divisions and can make noise in the playoffs. So I was super excited about how that game actually fulfilled. I was very nervous I was screaming at my TV. And when we won, I was going crazy, because that is a huge win in my books.
Well, yeah, and we talk about receivers as well. Did Romeo Doubs show anything to you? He had the touchdown, right? Do you see him kind of now coming into his own?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great potential there, and I'm excited that he's doing it against, again, another great defense. And they didn't have a lot of guys to like what I liked about having Watkins, even though I don't think he's God's gift to football, is that he's another weapon. I love having Watson to see him develop, but missing those guys, you're going to key in on Dobbs. You're going to key in on Lazard. You're going to key in on Tanyan. And for him to get separation, and Aaron's just so accurate, it's so fun to watch him throw a football. Like some of these other teams, like I like Derek Carr, but I'd be having an aneurysm if I was a fan of theirs watching him, because you just don't know when he's going to turn the ball over. So Dobbs, I think, is taking steps that I'm super excited about. I still think that Watson is probably the better wide receiver. He's just been struggling with injuries, and we haven't seen what he can do yet.
When you see this, team, Craig, and saw that game, does that worry you at all now defensively for the next time the Vikings face the Packers?
Yeah, he said the defense does impress me. They looked good. They were very solid throughout the whole game. And I think that's the scary part about the Packers is Aaron Rodgers can pull out some magic, and he always seems to year after year. And so they can put up points. They had a bad game against us offensively, but that doesn't mean they're a bad offense. And so when the Vikings go to Green Bay, I think it's going to be a much tougher game for them to come out. And also week 1, they were missing Lazard, they were missing Bakhtiari. I mean, it wasn't a healthy team coming into it. So you add those 2 players in alone, and that's going to make a difference. So the Packers. I thought coming into the season it was a Vikings and Packers division to win, and I think that's still what it's going to be going forward.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, you don't want to get too high or too low from a win or loss, especially if you're going to be one of those upper tier teams. You want to. There's some good takeaways when you look at the Packers. Living here in Wisconsin, I hear you both. I hear the Wisconsin radio, and it's like, okay, see, we proved that we're an elite team, but really you have to prove it throughout the whole season, right?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Like, no disrespect to Lions fans, but when they won like week 2, the excitement level was insane. And like as teams, and really like our 3 teams have had success in the past. Like, it's almost like they've not had success for so long. By winning one game, their high was so high. And like, could you imagine if they actually beat the Vikings this week? Like, they would be like, we're going to win the division. We're going to make the playoffs. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a long season. And so that's the difference between him. Like, we're used to winning, and then we're not trying to be arrogant or anything. It's just a fact, And so like when the Vikings win, it's like, yeah, I mean, every game counts, but we're not like, whoa, it's going to, maybe that was what it was like week 1. You tell me, Craig, about how Viking Nation was responding, but
yeah, I think week 1 gave them a little bit too much confidence. There was a lot of holes in week 1. That was actually a closer game than the score indicated. Week 1, the Vikings only scored 6 points in that second half, and the Packers were stopped on 4th down in the red zone. So it was a lot closer than the score indicated. And I think the Vikings fans were super high coming off week 1. We got knocked back to reality week 2 as a fan base, because that game was not close and that was not really competitive. But the Eagles also didn't score any points in that second half. So it's been a weird kind of run of second halves for this team. But yeah, I think coming off the win of the Lions, I think everybody's just happy to leave there with a win. And so I think kind of hopefully the fan base at least has mellowed a little bit. And, the expectations, the Vikings have never had success. They've never won a Super Bowl. So I think the expectations is always for them to kind of blow it in the playoffs anyway from this fan base. So, I think that the fan base expects them to be competitive for the division, but I don't think anybody's expecting a Super Bowl.
Well, speaking of a win, and it really didn't seem like that in Chicago. And I had a chance to go to the Bears Texans game in Chicago on Sunday. And, from the get-go, it seemed like the Bears were in control, and then it just switched. And it was so sobering to see, the performance by Justin Fields. And, when you're kind of in the middle of it, you obviously you want to win and all of that. But I mean, there's so many lessons to learn from that. But, the Bears did win on the last second field goal, and Roquan Smith was kind of right in front of me, got that pick and everything. And, but afterwards in all week, it's been, Justin Fields a bust, this and that. And so, when you kind of look at that as a Packer fan, Trevor, I mean, what were you kind of hearing on the outside? And then I'll go ahead and share some of the things that I've heard as well.
Yeah, I'm super interested. Like when you're there live, it's so much different than watching it on TV. But so I'm very interested on your take. But like I predicted the Bears would win that game. I didn't think it was going to be that close. What my takeaway from it is that your run game is so stinking good. Like, and from our conversation last time, I actually really believe in that Justin Fields pick. So I still think that he's probably your guy, but your defense has looked really good at times this year. So I was kind of surprised that they were looking a little shaky. But that like Herbert, oh my goodness. Is that right?
Yeah, Khalil Herbert. Yeah.
Yeah. So he looked dynamic. The good news is so did Montgomery. Like against the Packers, Montgomery looked unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So it's very encouraging to have two running backs and you don't really miss a beat. So my takeaway is like they found a way again to win. Like all three of our teams won. It's weird how the Lions fan didn't show up. So all three of our teams won, found ways to win. That was impressive to me. So I know you're probably frustrated about how it happened. At the end of the day, it's the W, and you found a way to win. And he looked dynamic in running the ball.
Well, here's the thing. Like I have a couple different things. Yeah. I mean, the fan in me wants to, just kind of, you're excited they won, but then you nitpick and everything, and you kind of, and you're in the moment for the season. Right. And as a Bears fan, that's probably the hardest thing around it right now. You can't be in the moment for the season because this is just not our season. Right. And so when you're in the moment for the season, you're thinking, okay, Fields didn't do this. He looked bad. Like he was, overthrowing like a swing pass and, just not having good reads. He just looked really tentative and he's probably very, just trying to get used to the game plan but it was interesting here, like Trent Dilfer and some of these other, quarterbacks break it down. And really there were a lot of good things that they saw from him. There were some good plays. He had a nice play to Mooney and it's more than the throws. It's managing the game and what Trent Dilfer had to say, on 670 to Score, he talked about how these quarterbacks, they're used to being the guy and when a game is called for them and making all these plays. And then when they get into a different offensive system and they're asked to be more of a game manager, they kind of sit back a little bit because Trent Dilfer talked about that, how, with the Ravens, how he would sit back and you kind of like, it's not really depressed, but you just like, oh, you're used to being the guy and make plays. And so he's not used to be able to sit back and be the game manager. He's used to, so there's that dynamic. And so a lot of it is, the coaching kind of learning and he's learning. So there's a lot, so a lot of us fans, were frustrated at the game and afterwards on, but then taking a step back and realizing that, we may be frustrated as fans, but the organization is 100% behind them. They're, and it's going to, take some time. And so that's a little bit more, it's sobering, but that's a little bit more comforting to be like, okay, well, let's realize this is not going to be the season that we're going to get to the playoffs. And the other thing, I know you talked about the defense as well with, the running game with Khalil Herbert. And this is where I really caution myself and other people too, that, you look at one game and you get so high or so low. Right. And the big thing with Houston is they were horrible at pass defense and they were horrible at run defense. Right. They weren't giving up a lot of points, but those, so is it that the Bears are that good at, running, or was it, Houston, and so So I go back and forth on that, but it is as a fan, it's great to see a young player like Herbert step in when there's an injury to Montgomery and do so well. And so at least we have some positives, to kind of take from that game. And they won, right? And the defense did what they needed to do. One last point on that, on Houston, though, when you look at Dameon Pierce live, he is going to be a beast. If he did fumble late in the game, and then they took him out and put Burkhead in, but he's going to be a beast all around. So, what did you see from that game, kind of on the outside, Craig?
Yeah, I think my thoughts of the Bears are always like, it's Justin Fields is just not ready to kind of be competitive. Maybe he turns out to be a quarterback. I don't believe in him personally, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be right about it. But I think it just kind of confirms my suspicion that that team's just not ready to compete. From what I see, I think the Texans are going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, and that should be I think if the Packers or the Vikings are playing that team, it wouldn't have been a very close game. So it just kind of, my mind just kind of confirms those suspicions, where I don't think the Bears will be ready to compete. I think the defense is good. I think the running game is great. But they just don't have the quarterback or the passing game that's going to be able to compete in the division.
Looks like you froze.
Did I freeze here? Or I'm back.
Just for a second.
What were your thoughts on kind of more on that, Trevor?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting take, but at the end of the day, we did play you guys last week and we barely won. You know what I mean? Like it got close. So I actually think the Bears are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. I guess when you have a young quarterback, you have the growing pains, and we just need to be okay with that. Like, everyone thought that Trey Lance was the next up and coming and getting drafted super high or with lots of expectation and fantasy drafts, but we still haven't been able to see that yet. That's just really disappointing. But I kind of look at Fields and go, man, like, he just needs reps and he needs real game time situations here. So I believe in him a little bit more. What I don't believe in is the coaching of the Bears. We thought with Nagy was the issue. So this is what I'm shocked about. And then as well, we were shocked. I'm shocked that your receiving core isn't that great.
Yeah. That was the thing, live. I made the comment when Mooney actually made that catch. I said, "Oh, I forgot that he was actually playing for the Bears." And that's something that really surprised me too, because, the Texans, they're, not a top, pass defense, and he wasn't able to create separation, and that's hard too. And part of it too was the line as well. He didn't have as much time, but when you look at it, he's got a lot to improve. The Bears aren't ready. They do need an extra wide receiver, and it's just it's hard as a fan you want to see them do well, but take a step back and say, okay, well, we need pieces. We also need, the coaching staff needs to kind of learn as well. And it sounded like, Getsy was, from what, I was hearing from Trent Dilfer, that Getsy was really calling some, good innovative plays, and a lot of it's in execution. I think, with the two interceptions, one of them was, a really bad throw. And I remember just being like, okay, that was horrible. What's going on? And everyone was kind of booing. And the other one, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't as bad, and so there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't study enough to kind of, know the X's and O's. But when you look at it, he came out in the media and he's talked about this, about wanting to kind of show more of his personality. And he, said he played like crap. And the next step is obviously then to continue to learn from this.
Mm-hmm.
But so my question here, and obviously I think I know, Craig, your thoughts on this. Is Justin Fields a bust at this point?
I mean, even me as a non-believer, I can't say he's a bust. I mean, I would have never thought Josh Allen would be what he was or what he is now. 3 years ago. And so I would have, the Vikings lost to Josh Allen at home when Josh Allen was terrible, or whatever we thought might have been terrible, and they've lost to Justin Fields too. So it's not. I mean, he's capable of coming back. I think it's too early to say he's a bust, but I would say my predictions would say 2 years from now you're going to be picking another quarterback.
So I'm glad that you brought up Josh Allen. So Jake Lane, JQKE Lane on Twitter, tweeted this. He said Josh Allen's first 11 starts, 4 wins, 7 losses, passing yards, 1,850 yards, 7 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 51.6 completion percentage, rushing yards, 536 yards, 6 touchdowns, 7.1 average, and Justin Fields, pretty comparable. He's 4-7, similar, 1,774 yards, very close. 2 more touchdowns at 9 touchdowns, 2 more interceptions, 13 interceptions, 58.4% completion percentage, 468 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and a 5.1 average. So very similar. And that was really kind of interesting, that when you look at it, it takes time for these quarterbacks to really, develop correctly. I mean, even you look at Joe Burrow, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if he's really regressed this year, but the team has, right?
Yeah, I mean, these young quarterbacks don't always just turn out consistent play like we expect them to. And I mean, there's a reason why the NFL used to make quarterbacks sit for 2 or 3 years before they were the starter. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is probably the prime example of how much he benefited from sitting on the bench for a few years. It's so we expect these young guys to come in and just know how to play in the NFL and be consistent winners, and it just doesn't happen very often, if really ever. I mean, Justin Herbert is considered to be great, but he's not winning on a consistent basis either. He doesn't have a winning record. He's not, the guy that's out there just dominating. And so, to tell me that, Justin Fields is going to be a bust, I think he might be, but, it's way too early to tell.
What are your thoughts, Trevor?
Yeah, I share a lot of sentiments because it is too early to tell. I also think that, that Josh Allen comparison by both of you is excellent. I'm not saying that he's going to turn into Josh Allen, but what I do think is I think Josh Allen was in a better system, so he could succeed. I'm really concerned about the Bears management team and what the coaching staffs look like, and I should give them a little bit more grace, honestly, but I do think that there's these young quarterbacks, like everyone wants such Patrick Mahomes, and it's like it's hard to see that. There has to be, but the thing with Joe Burrow, the difference between Joe Burrow is he's a winner. He is a winner. Like college, the whole thing. Like, and I have a good friend who's a Chargers fan, like diehard Chargers fan, and he's trying to tell me that Herbert's way better than Burrows, or they must be regretting or whatever. And I'm like, no, dude, they're not, because he knows how to win. And so first 2 games didn't look good. He looked good this week. He's probably going to look good again this week coming up. So there are some quarterbacks that just have that instinct. I do think Herbert is a massive stud. Like, I think he's the quarterback of the future. Like, the Miami taking Tua, like, he's going to have games that he's amazing. But I would take Herbert every day of the week over Tua. That was a terrible mistake. So going back to Justin, that's why I'm not writing him off yet, because I do think he needs a little bit more help, and he needs a little bit more time. But there are some quarterbacks that, like, for example, let's just use Jordan Love for example. Like, I am not confident on Jordan Love as a pick, right? And I know everyone's against him, blah, blah, blah. But if he was our starting quarterback this year, that would have been so scary, because he turns the ball over, and we're so used to a quarterback that doesn't. So it's easy to criticize Justin Fields right now. But if we had Jordan Love in, oh my goodness, that would be a different story.
Well, yeah, and before the season, I had someone on Facebook and Twitter saying that good old Kellen Mond was better than both Justin Fields and
Wow.
Jordan Love. Obviously, that was an interesting take. But when you look at Jordan Love, I mean, I've heard positive things, preseason and all that, and but he is the backup quarterback. I mean, do you see him developing into a starter? Maybe not with the Packers eventually, but somewhere.
Yeah, I think that he has the potential to develop. He just should be very thankful that Aaron Rodgers stayed. Because, and I know that he's kind of been the scapegoat and and it kind of started the whirlwind. Like they should have just talked to Rodgers and said, "Hey, just so you know, we're going to be getting a quarterback. We're going to be developing while you are in your prime." They should have done that, but for some reason, teams are really stupid when it comes to their HR. Like Bobby Wagner finding out on Twitter or whatever, like that he was like, this guy helped you win a Super Bowl, right? So I think they shot themselves in the foot, so to speak. But Jordan Love has the potential of being something good. But if he was thrown into the fire, just like Justin Fields has been thrown into the fire, I don't know if he would develop the way he does. I think they actually did draft him to develop. So, I mean, he's got to prove it. Everyone keeps saying in practice and preseason he looked good, and then he played in preseason games, and he does not look good. It's just like he just doesn't. And so I don't want to be like, I'm not a biased fan. I'm a realistic fan. Like, you can see it with your own eyes. It doesn't take a rock scientist. It doesn't take someone who's been in the NFL for 10 years watching it or being in management. You just see there's a difference. There's something missing, and he needs more time to develop. So is he going to be great? I don't know. Right now, I would say no, but he can prove all of us wrong.
So, I've been on the, pro Justin Fields, and definitely let him develop, but almost that same argument can be for him at this moment. I mean, I like some of the plays that he has. He's got that, the playmaking ability and all that. And I know, Craig, you think he's maybe on the bust side, you're not a believer in him. And as a realist, yeah, it is possible that Justin Fields could be a bust and they could draft another quarterback, maybe even, next year if they're higher up. That is possible. Since, this regime is not, that's they didn't draft him,
Right.
If they're up there, they may be with their schedule and everything, as a realist, you have to say, yeah, that's possible. Until you have a quarterback that's and it's Mitch Trubisky made a Pro Bowl, so maybe not even Pro Bowls, but in playoff wins and perennial playoff contention, all that, and just kind of taking the mantle. So that's all possible. But as a Bears fan, I have that hope, and you have to have that hope, that you have the next quarterback, because the quarterback is so important. It's the most important position in the NFL. If you don't have a quarterback, I mean, you look at the Lions, right? If they had a quarterback, I mean, they've got so much talent, offensively, without injuries and everything. If they had a quarterback to really kind of take over, if Stafford was still there, right? What would Stafford be doing with the Lions? You look at all that. So quarterback is important. And but also with that, and I think Trevor, you wanted to talk a little bit about the receivers between the Bucs and the Packers. The receivers are important as well, and obviously with the Bears, we know that with Mooney, and I had hoped that he might kind of be that number one, that dog to really just kind of take over games, but he's not quite there yet. And when you look at wide receivers, talk about that, with the Packers, it maybe in the Bucs and kind of where they're at with receivers.
Yeah, so obviously the Bucs had some injuries coming into this week and a suspension, right? So we didn't get their best team on Sunday, which I'm thankful for. Don't get me wrong, win's a win. You got to be able to put a team out. Evans got to be able to control his temper, so he's playing games, not just being dumb that way. But when you're looking at wide receiver cores, like the Vikings in our division has the best wide receiver core, and it's not even close, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, but when you look at the Bucs and the Packers, it was almost two identical teams walking in. Great defenses, incredible quarterback play, and really weak wide receivers. and running backs, I would give the edge to Green Bay, right? So I just think that wide receiver, like people have written off Green Bay so bad. This is again comes back to that young person where like Fields or whoever, you got this incredible young core that is needing to progress, and I'm okay. So Craig, just so you know, I did a Packer prediction video, and I predicted that we were going to be 13-4, and I predicted we're going to lose week 1 to the Vikings. Now, my friends who are Packers fans, like, are you crazy? Like, why are you predicting like we're going to lose? It's like, well, it's realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew that it was going to take us time to develop as a wide receiver core, and you guys were going to be ready. You guys had already had the reps. You guys already had the studs. You got, and Zadarius Smith is going to be super mad that the Green Bay treated him like whatever, and he's going to come after us. And I just knew that game was going to be over. We couldn't stop the run, that whole thing. But then I even predicted that we'd beat the Bears. No, which isn't shocking. But I thought we were going to lose to the Bucs. And I thought we were going to lose to the Bucs because not only their defense, but I thought we were going to lose because I thought they were going to have Godwin and Evans. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. And it's like, who's even like, I'm like, that guy's on the Bucs. Like, I didn't even know he was on there. You know what I mean? Like, and that's his number is 17. Oh, I've never seen him in the NFL wear 17 before. I'm used to, him on the other team. So it's very interesting how everyone's written off Green Bay, but everyone believes in Tampa Bay, and they still have these holes, right? So
I'm curious, what were your 4 losses then? You said Vikings. You had said the Bucs. What were the other 2?
Okay, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
So I've got it on the screen here. Yeah.
Okay, so I picked. I said we're not like my prediction is we're going to go 4-0 now, all the way through those. So Patriots, Giants, Jets, Commanders going to win those games. We're going to lose to the Bills. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we said we're going to lose to the Eagles, but I thought we were going to lose to the Rams, and so would that be 4? Vikings, Bucs, Rams, and Bills. Yeah, Bills. So which is awesome because I love being wrong when I think we're going to lose, right? So you know what I mean? Like, and as bad as our quote unquote, like, oh, the Bears are so bad, they're 2-1. Vikings are 2-1. Packers are 2-1. So it's like, who knows? But I thought the reason why I'm picking these teams is I think these are the playoff teams that we always struggle against. We have a pretty weak schedule. Craig, do you think you guys have a weaker schedule, or is it pretty strong? If you're there.
Oh, we lost. Oh, you there, Craig?
Yeah, I'm here.
So this was the Vikings schedule.
Yeah, so I actually had a prediction of 13-4 as well, and I had the Vikings losing to the Packers on the road. I had them actually losing to the Bears on the road the final game of the season because I figured everything would be wrapped up by then. So, what's the difference? I had them losing to the Bills, and then I actually think I had them losing to the Patriots just because I was getting too optimistic.
So it's interesting, Trevor, that you said the Packers have an easier schedule because that's all off season. And now I've been really kind of harping on that. When you look at this schedule, it's a tough schedule because, I've been on the Eagles bandwagon. I was, on the Jalen Hurts, the Rams, the Dolphins are looking tough now. The Cowboys are going to be an interesting one. Dak should be back by then. I don't know. But when you look at it, obviously, the Lions are going to be interesting out. If the Lions figure something out, if Dan Campbell figures something out, they're going to get a few wins, especially against the Bears. But you have to say, obviously, this stretch now beating the Bucs, this is kind of a get right stretch for the Packers.
Yeah, like, okay, now that Mac Jones is probably not playing, that it's not even going to be close, probably. But knowing Green Bay, we're going to make it closer than it is. Okay, the Giants. There is so much hype about the Giants right now. I don't think they're very good. And they're just. We'll
find out versus the Bears this week too.
Right, and maybe the Bears win. Right, and then the Jets don't look great. The Commanders don't look great. I mean, they've had some moments they look good. Like the Titans don't look good. The Cowboys, is Dak going to be back? They think so. Is he going to be healthy? Mm-hmm. We always find ways to beat the Cowboys. We always do. So this is where I'm looking at the schedule and going, wow. Like, now I'm not as high on the Eagles as you are. I might be wrong on that one. I'd like to see what they look like in the next 3-4 weeks before we start crowning them as going to the Super Bowl here. But the thing is that Rams game, that's the one I had the hardest time for because I think the Rams are super elite and good, and they've won a Super Bowl, and I give them credit. But we're coming off a bye week, so I'm hoping that we're coming to play. But I just had that feeling, like I just have this feeling that they're just better than us, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. I would love it if we won that Rams game. So this is where I'm like, I didn't think the Dolphins were going to be very good. They might be better than we think. So this is why I'm saying these things. I don't look at the schedule and go, oh man, I'm so nervous about this.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, Craig, you and I both think that our team's going to lose to the Bills.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, coming into the year, they were their presumptive kind of favorite to win everything anyway. So, they didn't. I mean, they've looked great this year. I know they didn't get the win this week, but I mean, they still look incredibly strong. That offense is just so powerful. I didn't think the defense would be able to stop them, and so I just don't. I mean, I still don't. I still think they're going to lose to the Bills. I didn't believe the Eagles coming into this season. I mean, they've obviously had a very good start to the year. But there's always a team that starts off, 4, 5, 6-0, and then all of a sudden they're a 10-7 team at the end of the year or something like that. So there's always a team that starts hot like that. I think the Eagles might be that team this year. I hope they are, just because I don't like the Eagles personally. But it's so hard to look at a schedule coming into the year and say that's a hard schedule or an easy schedule, because the NFL, it just has so much turnover. It's hard to predict.
Yeah,
all right, Craig.
The Vikings one back up for a second, So what you were saying, Craig, is like you're going to run the table, is what you're telling me, until you get to the Bills.
So I got obviously overly confident. I thought this offense was going to look a lot better than it has so far this year.
I did too, actually.
I thought Kevin O'Connell coming in, there's so many weapons. I thought they were even more dynamic. I thought they were going to do more things with the weapons they have, and it seems to be the same kind of bland offense. The first couple weeks here, so I had more confidence in the offense than I should have. Yeah, I had them running to the table all the way to the Bills, but then I had a loss at the Bills, a win against the Cowboys, and a loss against the Patriots, and I lost the last 2 weeks of the year.
Well, let's get into that real quick. Obviously, this week with the Vikings going to London, NFL players like to have routine. And do you think that, going to London, it's going to be an issue at all, Craig?
No, I think at this point it's kind of old news for a lot of the players. I know there's a lot of fanfare around it, and there's a lot of events going on. But for the players, I mean, it's a 6-hour ride or 7-hour ride on a very nice jet. It's not that hard. I think it's kind of overblown a little bit. It's an early game, and I think that's the biggest adjustment is trying to wake up early, and I think the teams are doing a better job of making sure they're adjusted to that time difference. But that's the biggest difference. It's really not. I mean, there's not like you're suffering from jet lag from flying on a private plane to England.
Yeah, and so you look at this game then. What are some of the keys that you see, and do you see them beating the Saints?
I do see them beating the Saints. Jameis Winston didn't practice today, which actually makes me more nervous. I'd rather see him than Andy Dalton at this point.
Can you say that one more time, please?
That Jameis Winston didn't practice today.
No. That you would rather see Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I'd rather see Jameis Winston.
Okay.
Than Andy Dalton.
That statement right there blows my mind.
Wow.
Right there.
I'm shocked.
Well, the Vikings have a terrible history against losing to backup quarterbacks. They lost to the Cowboys last year with Cooper Rush. They lost to the Chiefs the year before that when Patrick Mahomes was out. I mean, they just, for whatever reason, they just underperform. And then Nick Foles, a few years ago in that playoff run, they lost to him. So I think that little bit of bad history and bad juju that comes along with a backup quarterback against the Vikings kind of squeezes into at least the fans' mentality. I'm sure the players don't even think about it. But I don't think either one of those quarterbacks are very good. At this point, Jameis, I thought he might show something coming into this year. He got hurt so early last year, and he looked so good against the Packers week 1. But then, he's shown nothing this year. He looks terrible. He looks like he did, like he was with the Bucs. So, I don't think the Saints are that great this year. They just and Michael Thomas isn't practicing again. I think they're just beat up, and the Vikings should win this game. It doesn't mean they will, but I definitely expect them to win.
Well, we talked about, the Packers having a good running game, but even with the Vikings, like even if Dalvin Cook's out, Alexander Madison, he's been more than capable, to fill in, right?
Yeah, he's a stud running back. I mean, he's a starting caliber running back in this league. He's not as dynamic as Dalvin Cook. He's not as fast. He doesn't have the vision. That's the one thing he struggled with. And I think he's looked better this year. But in the past, it seems like he can't find the hole when there is one. But the offensive line has done a much better job of run blocking as well. He looked great last week when he filled in. He looks competent. He has a couple 100-yard rushing games in his history. So I mean, he's a good running back. So even if Dalvin Cook doesn't play, it's definitely a disadvantage for them, but it's not the end of the world.
And you're not worried about Chris Olave at all?
No, not really. I think the Vikings can handle
it. What are your thoughts, Trevor?
You know what? You're probably right, Craig. The more you're talking, I'm like, yeah, they're really behind the 8 ball here. Yeah. The only thing is, like, Kamara, is he playing? Mm-hmm. And that guy he's top 3 most talented running backs. I think he's way better than Dalvin Cook personally. And I think Dalvin Cook's a very good running back who's not going to be playing. But you're right. Like, Olave is very good if Michael Thomas was healthy.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to key in on Olave. Oh my goodness. Like, I think, you're probably right. It might be a blowout there. And that's exciting for a Vikings fan base. But the thing is the Saints, they kind of always cause problems for people. Like, they cause problems for the Bucs, and I don't know if they're trying to be Tom Brady's kryptonite or what, but it's amazing. So I'm thinking now, listening to you, that's probably going to be a blowout, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was close either. I'm hoping that Jefferson does something for once, because I have my fantasy team.
I just been really surprised by the Saints defense. Like, I expected them to be, the top, and they just haven't really.
No, and that's been a strength of theirs the last couple of years, has been that defense. And yeah, they've looked poor. Like you said, Olave as a number 1 is not scary to me when you don't have Michael Thomas, and we can, they can double team him fairly easily. I think the Vikings defense is up for that challenge. Kamara is a good running back. I mean, Christmas Day a few years ago, he put up 5 touchdowns against the Vikings. I mean, it was he single-handedly won that game for him. So that he's a scary enough running back. But I just don't think they have the players. I think they're gonna key in on stopping the run early, and they only have the one-trick pony on the passing game. So I don't see that being enough to beat this team.
So you're moving to obviously we talked a little bit. We'll get into the Packers Patriots in a second, but Bears. When we look at the Giants game, it's at the Giants. When you look at the Bears, actually for either team, for the Giants or the Bears, ball security is going to be important. And that's kind of, when we go back to the Justin Fields stuff, a little bit disappointing was that, he did, have those interceptions, and, and that's something you don't want to see out of your quarterback. And so that's going to be important. Now, obviously, special teams, field position battle is going to be important with offenses that really need to get on track. And I've heard that, obviously, when they look at Daniel Jones, that the Giants are still really high on him. So it's interesting that, to kind of hear that I don't know if that's just talk or anything, but that he, even in a loss, that he has been performing. So, so when you look at that, the Giants pass defense is going to be, they're not going to be tested, right? And that was the one thing the Bears going to the Texans game. I thought that would be a get right game for Fields and Mooney. Because when you just have to, when these teams aren't as good, you have to, make something happen. Because when it gets, tougher teams, it's just not going to happen. And, you can only do so much with a run before they start keying on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing about this game is, I think everyone's going to pick the Giants to win this, but it's the Giants. Like, do we think they're going to make a run at winning this division? I know that Barkley looks really awesome, and like Daniel Jones is solid, but he's not really great. The thing is, I think Seattle make a huge mistake by making a trade with Denver instead of with the Giants. They should have went and got Daniel Jones and got the draft picks and all that kind of stuff there. I think that would have made the whole division so much more interesting. But the Giants, like on Sunday night, Daniel Jones was an amazing rusher. And he's got those legs. So that's the only thing is, if you guys can contain Daniel Jones, I mean, you're going to have every team's going to have a hard time with Barkley, right? No Sterling Shepard, but he doesn't really pass the ball that much. I think if you can have some quarterback contain or, that quarterback spy, I think it might be way closer than people think.
So yeah, it's interesting because being at the game and Dameon Pierce, like throughout the game, I just had this sense that Dameon Pierce was just, I mean, they were doing a lot of different things with him and he was getting some yards and everything. And I thought, wow, he's really gashing the Bears defense. And then Khalil Herbert, they did a comparison on the board about him. And I think it was Dameon Pierce only had like 4.1 yards per carry. And obviously Herbert had 7 point whatever at that point, and so it's interesting. The Bears defense, it is a bend, don't break. I mean, they were, giving up yardage, but then when they got, close to the, in the red zone, the Bears were, figuring something out, and so that'll be interesting. Barkley is a more polished and a better running back than Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is going to get there with how hard he runs and how, good he runs and different things. But so you have that Barkley, but I believe Barkley even got hurt the last time versus the Bears a couple years ago when he was versus the Bears. So when you look at this, keys for the Bears, they're going to have to figure something out, balanced offense. Because of the defense, I do think the Bears are going to win this game, and because of the Giants, but you never know. I mean, Brian Daboll, he's doing some better things, with the Giants offense. So you never know, but I expect the Bears to win. It's going to be an ugly game. It might be like a 14-12 game, like the Bucks and the Packers, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Craig?
No, I think it's two very similar teams facing off against each other. I think the offenses are very similar. They have strong running games. The passing game is very weak. I mean, this might set a record for the least passing yards in 10 years in this game. I mean, it's I just don't even think they're even going to try that much for it. So, it's going to be, this game might be over by, 2.5 hours because they're just going to run the ball so much. It's going to be an ugly pound out game. It's going to be like an 80s football game. And I think, like you said, the Bears have the better defense, so they should come out. I'm taking the Bears this week. I think they're the better team. I don't believe in the Giants. They have surprised me. They've looked a lot better than I thought they would. But yeah, I mean, it's very two similar teams. You have these quarterbacks that are still developing and still have a chance to become something. But right now, I mean, this year, they're not going to impress anybody with their arms.
Well, yeah, and you look at the Bears' schedule. So I mean, we've looked at their schedule. I mean, they lose to the Giants. Or if they lose to the Giants, it's not gonna. I mean, you got the Commanders there. Patriots gonna be interesting. I don't see, and I was one of the ones that, at the beginning of the season didn't see many wins for the Bears either. This is one, they have to win. If they're thinking about getting anywhere close to the playoffs, it's not going to happen. But like this is one where organizationally, you look at different organizations, and I know it's just the Bears organization has been a mess for so many years because of ownership and all that. And so when you look at different organizations and looking at where we're at, the Giants would be one we would have to beat, I think. Obviously the Lions, when I look at season-wise, if they, God forbid, get swept by the Lions, I'm just scared by that offense, because at the Bears, we don't have an offense. So, but when you look at this game, I think they need to win to show some type of progress. If they don't win, it's not the end of the world long term, but it's still going to kind of hurt a little bit and say, okay, well, where are we at organizationally?
Yeah, I thought you guys were going to be bottom 3. Mm-hmm. So for you guys to be 2-1 already, I was like, wow, that they're surprising me. I'm not picking the Bears to win this week, even though I think it could be a lot closer. I think the Giants are going to find a way to win, just because I think they have a little bit stronger quarterback play than Fields because he's still working it out. But you guys are right. The Bears could win this game. That schedule right there, that looks a lot harder to me as a Bears fan than, as a Vikings and a Packers fan. And you guys got some tough, I probably at that Patriots game, Mac Jones is going to be back. Dak Prescott's probably going to be back with the Cowboys. So I'm wondering, I don't know, are you still thinking that, where do you think the Bears are going to end up here with this, looking at the schedule? You got the Eagles after the bye week.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't think they're going to beat the Eagles. So, you brought up Mac Jones. Mac Jones doesn't scare me with or without him. He doesn't scare me. What scares me is, are they going to score points on offense? I mean, that's, and they can score enough, I think, to beat the Patriots. So I don't know, maybe they'll, Commanders is going to be an interesting one too. I mean, so I say maybe the Giants, Commanders, Patriots. I don't think they're going to be the Cowboys. Lions at home 4, Falcons 5. The Jets is going to be tough too. 5 or 6 more wins, if that. So that would actually put us, at 7 or 8 wins, which I was one that looked at the beginning of the season. I thought maybe 4 or 5 wins. So if they're that, and I think about just saying that, it almost kind of makes me a little bit sick saying 7, 8 wins, right? Because and I would rather them be just putrid, because then they could continue to build that top level talent that they need to compete with the Vikings and the Packers, not this average talent that they've gotten for a few years. They need that top end talent. And so if they have to lose to the Giants, as a fan, it's going to hurt, right, in the short term, but long term, maybe that's what needs to happen. So there are some winnable games in here. I'm not confident they're going to do that. The Giants are the Giants, so I'm confident that they can do that. But the other ones, I do not even know, not even the Lions, and that's weird to say.
Right. But here's the thing. I find that there's teams, every team has NFL players on it, right? They're top end coaches and all that kind of stuff. So it's not I don't think the Bears are going to get blown out every week. They're just, their record is not going to be there. What happens is that at halftime, the adjustments happen and some teams adjust and win games, and then others just fall short. So, for example, the Packers game, if they would have scored on that 4th down, which they may have done, they still were losing. They still needed, other points and that whole thing, but it was just not enough. That's the difference between a playoff team and a team that's really struggling. So if I'm with you, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm wanting to lose games. I'm wanting a top 3 pick. I'm wanting a top 5 pick, because that's how you're going to get better. You got pieces. You're close, but you've got to lose those games, but still progress. How do you do that? I don't know. You can never plan to lose, right? But
well, yeah, and you look at the Lions. I feel like the Lions are. I mean, they're there. They're starting to get there. Obviously, we don't know about their quarterback situation yet, but if Dan Campbell is just kind of making these mistakes and having them lose games, I mean that's too bad. But the Lions, it's hard to say. The Lions do have better talent than the Bears, right? I mean, we all agree that.
Yeah.
Overall, are you there, Craig, on that?
I don't know. I mean,
okay.
Well, probably overall they do. I think the Bears defense is still better. Much better. I mean, the Lions are giving up tons of points, right? So I don't think the Lions have the defense to compete, and that's their issue. I think the Lions are much better offensively. But yeah, I think I see them as the opposite problems of each other.
Yeah, so it's almost like a Seinfeld where George and Jerry become one. One person. The Lions and the Bears just kind of meld into one team. Then they could win the division.
Yeah, well, they still need a quarterback between the two of them.
Oh, ouch. That's true, though.
My goodness.
Well, I'm hoping that Fields does, get there. But, yeah, I mean, you're right, though, Trevor. players, teams do have NFL talent, right? But it's getting that winning edge, and you want to see that from a quarterback. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers does that. Kirk Cousins has done that, just not on prime time, right? What is the deal with that?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Kirk believer. I think this team's good enough to win with him in spite of him. But he has so much offensive talent, and he puts up big numbers, obviously. But he's just not. He's the opposite of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is that winner, the guy that goes up there and wins the game for you. Kirk isn't. He never seems to be that guy that's gonna win the game for you. He doesn't have that clutch gene or whatever you want to call it. So I think before this season, when I was on the podcast with you, I mentioned I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't. Long term, I wish they would have moved on from him or never signed him really. But it's he has the talent this year to do something, and I think he's. I mean, he's. I don't think he's any worse than Matt Stafford is, and Matt Stafford won a Super Bowl. So Stafford threw the game-losing pick against the 49ers in the playoffs. They just dropped it. So he's the same guy. I feel like. So is it possible that they win with him? I think their team's good enough. If they pull it, if the defense comes together, they could. I mean, Kirk is he's a frustrating player to watch as much as you were mentioning how fun it is to watch Aaron Rodgers earlier. It's not fun to be a Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins had to be your quarterback because time and time again, he just kind of lets you down on those big spots.
What can Craig, so, the narrative can change so much with a quarterback. And I feel like, Aaron Rodgers has been riding high for, 12 years now. He's just been kind of riding high. Obviously, he's got the MVPs, but he's been right on the Super Bowl. But what could change your narrative on Kirk? If he leads the Vikings to the Super Bowl, or is that the only bar that would say, okay, yes, I'm a Kirk believer?
I mean, at this point, that probably would be it. I mean, if he would just go out and win the division, be a guy that wins 13 games and wins a playoff game or two. Even if they lost an NFC Championship game, maybe I'd turn the corner on him. But I just if my preseason prediction was correct and 13-4, I'd probably be like, all right, he's the guy. Let's ride with him. But I hope that prediction comes true. And Kevin O'Connell used to work with him over in Washington, and he can help turn him around and bring him up. I mean, he could become Matt Stafford. That narrative's changed around Stafford very quickly, obviously. And so I'm hoping that's the story. But that's pretty much what it would take is at least a very high win total and a playoff win or two.
Well, I want to touch on the Packers-Patriots game, and obviously it's changed now with Mac Jones probably not playing. I mean, the Packers have to win this game, right? Like if they stumble here, this is kind of like they have to win this, right, Trevor?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, in my fantasy league, I put $11 on the Fab because I wanted the Packers. I knew that Mac Jones wasn't playing. And so I think alone the defense is just going to tear the Patriots apart. They're going to really struggle. If you're looking at what they just did to Tom Brady, and I get it, they didn't have the wide receivers, but where do you think they're going to put up points on the running game? Yeah, Stevenson, Damian Harris, very good running backs. So I think they're going to run the ball, and none of our teams can stop the run. Mm-hmm. So right. All of our theories is bend, don't break, right? But the fact is, Green Bay, other than the Vikings game, we have really shut people down, and this is why I think it's going to be a blowout, because I'm just looking at our defense and it's getting stronger. It's getting back. It's quicker than it was last year. It's better than it was last year, in my opinion. And so yeah, they have a running game. So do we. And we have a way better quarterback. So I know that, you can't get too confident, but like, is any one of us picking the Patriots to beat the Packers this week? That could be shocking to me, right? So I don't think I'm overconfident. I'm just looking at the facts going, oh my, this is going to be nasty. Now, the only thing that we haven't talked about yet is Coach Bill. He knows a couple things about football. He knows how to get his team ready. And when a lot of people have counted him out over the years. So I do think, though, like, they knew that Mac Jones is their guy, but they're like, but if there's an injury, this is the other guy I want. And I think that is probably, I'm not thinking about that enough. So I am a little concerned that they might have a really great scheme against our Packers.
Well, yeah, you look at it. I mean, this could be like a Matt Castle / Brian Hoyer game, right? Where Bill Belichick, I think he loves that, that challenge of, coming out and defensively, trying to solve, the opposing, MVP quarterbacks offense, and then just having a quarterback that's going to manage the game. And when you look at the, Matthew Judon on the defensive side, I mean, that's going to be a tough matchup there. But how about the Packers offensive line? Is that a little bit better, now than it was, or it's still a mess, isn't it?
No, well, you got Jenkins back and David.
They're both going to be back then, right?
Yeah. So
okay,
I think if we had both of those guys against the Vikings, it might have looked a little different. I still think the Vikings would have beat us week 1 because we were still struggling through some things. But man, we're starting to get some form. So yeah, I'm not saying we're winning the Super Bowl. I'm just talking about against the Patriots here. I don't see much of a weak link that we're going to lose the game, or it's going to be as close as some people might think. I don't even know how the Patriots could beat us other than on the ground game.
Is that what you're kind of thinking too as well, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Patriots are going to put up 6 points this week or something. I just don't see how they're going to move the ball at all. Like you said, that defense is much better than they get credit for. Yeah, I mean, they struggle enough with Mac Jones in there, and it's going to be. I mean, Brian Hoyer is not the quarterback that's all of a sudden going to fix your woes on offense. I mean, defensively, I think I don't expect the Packers to put up 35 points or anything. I think the Patriots are going to be solid defense like they always are. But I could see this being like 27-6 or something, or 24-6 or something. A fairly easy win for the Packers. I can't see how the Patriots win this game.
As a Bears fan, I want to pick the Patriots, but I just can't. I mean, when you look at, I mean, not only Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, you got a backup quarterback. There's only a certain amount of things you can do, and I mean, this not gonna lie. Bailey Zappi coming in and throwing 4 touchdowns versus the Packers would be amazing. I don't know if he's going to see the field, right? But you never know.
Well, see, they don't have Cooper Rush here, right? Like
the legend of Cooper Rush.
Well, that's it. I mean, he wins apparently. He's just like, that's the thing. You've got the Matt Castles of the world and these guys that can step in, but we've seen Hoyer like.
Yeah,
I'm not scared at all.
I agree. Yeah. Well, when you look at, obviously, we're thinking the Packers are going to win, and so we'll go ahead and see. I'm thinking the Bears are going to win. I think you guys are both picking against the Bears. Or did you say?
Yeah, I have the Bears winning this week.
You do.
You don't want the Bears to win, man. You
no, I
don't
want
want the Bears to lose.
I'm cheering for the Packers to lose too, but I don't think it's
no. But I'm saying, like, as a Bears fan, you should be cheering that you guys lose, right?
As me, I never. I'm not cheering that they lose, right? But I understand it if they do, and I don't like it. I talked about this, all off season. You want to see growth in Justin Fields, so this would be a game, right? He's talked about how he played like crap, come out and lead some offensive. There just has to be offensive continuity. There was none of that. None of it. It was just, they didn't really have an identity until they started to run the ball. And then it was like, okay, yes, this is our identity. We did that versus the Packers. I feel like they were kind of gashing the Packers at times. And that was what was working. And so that's become our identity. Now teams know that, right? So that's going to be the thing. Now Justin Fields and Luke Getsy, they're going to have to kind of make some adjustments and really try to show some growth. And it's hard. I don't wish that they lose, but I'm like, if they do, losses for the Bears can't hurt me this year. We'll just say that, right? I know I've had people on Twitter say, "Oh, your Bears are going to stink. They're going to be last in the division." I'm like, yeah, probably. So, right? This is not our year. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
But the scary
there's
thing is,
nothing wrong with that. Someone's going to be fourth in every division, right? Someone's going to be at the end. But that's when you get better, is if you draft well. So, I don't think it's that bad. Like, if I was a Seahawks fan, I'm wanting us to tank. Like, I'm so thankful we got Drew Lock and Geno Smith. I want to have first pick overall. That's what the goal for Seattle should be. You're not going anywhere with Geno Smith. So that's why I was suggesting that maybe you want to cheer that they lose, so that because if you think this is a two-year process, then this year is really smart that you get a great draft pick.
What I don't like is, especially being here in Wisconsin, then anytime the Bears lose, hearing more, anti-Justin Fields blasphemy and all that stuff. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm hoping we get there. But yeah, when you look at it, there are a few things that I want to see, and Justin Fields rebounding, that's another one. Because when you have a quarterback, I mean, Kirk Cousins has done that, right? Like, you probably want to see that too. Like, when he has a bad, game in the national spotlight, the next game, he's done well, hasn't he?
Yeah. No, he always he seems to bounce back. When the lights aren't on, he's great. When it's a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff, he's fantastic. He's one of the best. But when it comes playoff time, when it comes prime time, he's not the dude you want back there.
Well, hey, if the Vikings make the Super Bowl is basically like a 5 o'clock, Central Time game. So it's not quite so that might still work out.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping Kevin O'Connell can just kind of talk him out of that mentally. But yeah, I guess however he can shape that. At least the London game isn't like 9 p.m. their time. It's like 3 p.m. their time too. So I think we're all right.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, guys. Craig, where can everyone find you again?
Yeah, I write for the Daily Norseman. I'm usually 2 or 3 columns a week there. And then on Twitter, GA_Skull.
And where can everyone find you again, Trevor?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. I do fantasy football videos, Packer videos as well. In fact, I'm doing 2 videos this week and I talk more about strategy. So that's one of I try to teach people how to play, not who to pick, how to play, how to have those strategies. So I think that's way better information than just looking at a list and saying this. So that YouTube, Kempner Sports on YouTube, and also on Twitter, RevTrevK. Also, I'm on Facebook as well. If you go to Kempner Sports, search, I have a page there as well. And I love to interact with people that make comments and stuff. And I can hold my own in some of those conversations. But again, you better bring facts, not feelings, because your feelings are going to get hurt.
Hey, my feelings are not really hurt quite, as much until you say Justin Fields is a bust right now. That's the only thing. We'll wait. Let's wait on that. Once again, I am NFL Outdated. This has been the Freezin 4 NFC North podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that fun stuff. Thanks again for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great week.